Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. It's Monday morning, October 15th. Weather going to be sponsored by Haney Technical Center, 767-5500. High temperature today, 83. Low tonight, 64. Water temperature, 79 degrees. We're in a new moon. Our tides are going to be low, 5:51 a.m., high at 9:14 p.m. Right away, you probably notice a little change in the program here. We've got a great show lined up for you. Coach Chester has left myself, Matt Smith, and Justin Leake, PanamaCityInshore.com, and we're going to do this a little bit differently. Got an open format. We're going to talk about all the conditions we faced this past summer, some of the challenges and things that work for us as guides out on the water every day, and then take that into the current fall conditions, and got some great tips lined up for you, and hopefully pick up a few tips. And but Justin and I don't get a chance to sit around and talk fishing much anymore, so I'm going to be listening real closely when he's talking, and hopefully pick up a trick or two and see what we come up with.
Yeah, we'll take our first break, and we'll be back in just a second to discuss that.
Like we mentioned in the introduction, we just want to take some time and kind of rewind, go back. We had a very interesting year this year, all through the summer, and talk about the conditions that we faced, some of the challenges, and how we worked around those, and some of the things we found, changes we made to be successful on a daily basis. Justin, we'll start off with what we faced.
Well, as most people would recognize, we didn't have a normal summer weather-wise by any means. We had high winds, and I know the snapper fishermen would attest to that, because most of our short snapper season this year was pretty tough conditions, and lots of rain, a couple tropical storms, and all that kind of combined to make some difficult conditions. Not to say that you couldn't be successful in those tough conditions, but we definitely had to change tactics and look for new ideas to be able to catch fish during those times.
Absolutely. I just remember trying to schedule a trip, find a window, a 4-hour window. It seemed like it was really tough to do a lot of days, and just what I know last time we were on the show, we had mentioned about using technology to our advantage, and the apps on the phone. That radar app, there's a lot of them out there for these smartphones, was so important. And then there was a lot of days where I hooked up the boat actually in the pouring rain, but could gauge the weather looking at my phone, and knew that, hey, we might get a 3.5, 4, 5 hour window, and that was the only way I was able to actually make a trip happen.
Yeah, for the men and women out there that are resisting technology, resist the smartphone. If you're an avid outdoorsman, it is crucial now just puts you at a big advantage.
It does. Between the tides and then the weather, it's just everything there at the palm of your hand. It's great. And going back to that, the using that to deal with the rain. With all of that rain came probably in my lifetime, the most fresh water I've ever seen in our bay system. It's still there, even out. It's amazing out near the pass, Deepwater Point. As of right now, it's still tea-colored.
I know.
It's just, I don't know how long it's going to take. We'll all find out for our bay system to clean out, get that clean water back. And so that, with all of that fresh water and the wind and the rain, then we kind of led that into the bait, talking about the bait situation.
Yeah, a true story to go into that. The canal behind my parents' house, it comes out into North Bay, and I paddled a little pirogue out there and actually saw a bass in the bay. It was right in the mouth of that canal, and it was after a heavy rain, so the canal had a lot of fresh water coming out of it. But that was the first time in my life I actually saw a largemouth bass in the bay. That tells you something. And the gars, like over in East Bay, I mean, the gars everywhere out in the bay. So
it's been a very interesting year, and I guess what we want to do is just kind of go through and kick back some ideas, things that come to mind. That's just kind of unscripted, and that we'll kind of see where we go. But first, the first big challenge I really noticed, and we've talked on the show before about how critical live bait is for a lot of the charter trips that we do during the heat of the summer. And I guess it was early summer, the first tropical storm, Debbie. Once Debbie came in, we didn't get directly hit, but just the wind and the water, it just kind of churned this bay up, and the areas we were catching our bait consistently just all but disappeared.
Oh yeah, and then that's talking to pretty much. I tell you what, I think the entire guide community got closer this year because of that, because the bait just became so difficult to find and to catch. But
and I know you've got a real good tip for the end of the show, and has to do with this kind of overcoming and not necessarily having a plan that you have to stick with, and that's what happened with the bait. You got accustomed to be able to catch the bait that you want, and it had places where you did, and this year that just wasn't always the case, and had to make adjustments. So that was a huge challenge, and then as the fresh water increased, I noticed a lot of the areas where I was catching fish up more towards the head of the bay, North Bay, West Bay. Eventually there was a 2-week period where just literally there was so much fresh water the fish left. I've always kind of said, I think the fish, it messes with the pH in the water, and it messes with their visibility and their ability to feed. But I really do think this year fish just left areas.
Yeah, I would agree.
Of the fresh water.
Yeah, especially during the heat of the summer. A lot of those trout, redfish, flounder, stuff like that seek out those creek mouths, those deeper areas to kind of escape from the heat of the water temperature will be a lot higher on those shallower flats than it will in the creek mouths. So those are kind of their little escape areas to get out of the heat. Well, when it turns to pure fresh water in those creek mouths, I think it kind of put the fish in a tight spot.
Right.
They turn more into survival mode than happy looking for something to eat.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do, we're not going to be all gloom and doom this morning.
Right.
We definitely want to put a positive spin on it, and that's the best way I've always felt to approach fishing in conditions. I tell people on the boat, I say it's not a matter of if we're going to have conditions working against us today.
Yeah.
It's just which ones and how we plan to overcome them, and that's our job as guides, is to make those adjustments on the fly and take it as it comes to be successful. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're both going to kind of pass back some things that really work for us to be successful in these conditions, then make that transition into current conditions and fall and what we anticipate for this year.
Right.
We'll be right back. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some of the things we use to be successful in adverse conditions. As Panama City Inshore, we put ourselves out there as a source for all inshore fishing opportunities, and that's really what we do. And I know I pretty much specialize in the bay fishing, and Justin, you do both.
Yeah, we cover everything from fly fishing for tarpon to snapper fishing to tailing redfish and everything in between.
And that's what keeps it interesting and keeps us being able to accommodate everybody. We get so many different requests, different types of fishing. But I'll start off with fishing in the bay. One of the things that I do, especially in the summer, is my take on fish and their activity is I have a lot of different places that I'll fish even in one general area based on those conditions. I usually, and of course even a half-day, 4-hour trip, I move a lot just looking to find that one or two places that the fish are really active, the conditions are just right, and the fishing usually is good. So as the water continued to turn more fresh and get more color to it, I found myself moving more and more, trying to find better conditions, and it just kept getting worse. Then what I ended up doing is getting in some of the places I have the most confidence in, taking bait, doing more chumming, really camping out on a place and giving the fish a chance to come to me, and that made all the difference in the world. A lot of times, even in a 4-hour period, maybe only moving once or twice. That's what it took, and that was successful for me in the bay. What are some of the things you found with the conditions in the Gulf?
One of the biggest things on the Gulf side was not sticking to to a specific spot that you have caught fish before and you have confidence in, but the conditions aren't right that day.
Right.
And what I mean by that was water clarity. After all the rain and all, the storm and all that, I would pull up on a spot that I knew held great fish. It'd be showing good, and the water would look like chocolate milk. And at first I was thinking it doesn't matter. Hey,
Right.
they're here.
Right.
And we'd fire a few baits down there and get very few bites. And then I'd move on. And one thing I learned this summer was I would go to a spot that I thought was, not holding as much fish, but it would be in clear water, and we would always do better. So getting away from getting stuck in that rut, hey, this is where I'm going to fish, this is what I'm going to do, to go, hey, wait, that water really looks bad here. If we run a couple miles east or west, down the beach a little ways and getting some clear water, those spots were producing good. And it was one of those things where all this fresh water was coming out of our pass, out of Phillips Inlet, and I'm sure as you go down the Panhandle to Appalachia or Destin or Fort Walton or anywhere, getting away from those passes, not necessarily running offshore a long ways, but you can travel east or west down the beach and get away from those passes and still getting some clear water.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that is, and thinking back all the way to when I used to bass fish so much, is traveling and going different places that you weren't familiar with. Clean water was always a common variable, and that's something to take away. If you don't take away anything else, is how critical clean water is. And first thing that comes to mind for me in the bay versus the Gulf, in the bay I'm typically fishing 5 feet of water or less, a little bit deeper. I can visually assess the water clarity.
That's right.
When you're offshore 60, 80 feet of water, you don't know what the entire water column looks like. So
you don't, because there are certainly times where, like you were saying, you might be running in the Gulf and go, man, the water's really dirty here.
Right.
Well, down 20 feet under you, it might be gin clear.
There you go.
And
I think that's one thing different this year, and making adjustments, thinking back on years past where we've had a lot of fresh water. I think as far as speaking for the bay, the entire water column is pure fresh. I mean, as far as the stain in the water, and it's going to take a while to get out. And one of the big things I found myself doing this year is trying to think outside the box.
That's right.
Not so much go off of past experience because the conditions are so different. And I found myself second guessing, and I really had to just kind of get out of my comfort zone, move to different areas, try different things, and huge difference. What would be your best tip for when you were trying to schedule, say, around rough weather
was having that smartphone, watching the radar, and it was, this summer was so non-typical. Our typical summer pattern, we don't really worry about the rain that much because it comes in the afternoon.
Right.
I found myself actually calling my group saying, look, we're going tomorrow. Not sure what time, but we'll figure that out in the morning. And having that up-to-date forecast is so crucial, because you can look at the forecast for today and or for tomorrow, and by the time tomorrow gets here, it's completely changed.
Right.
And I'm sure anybody that's been on the water could agree with that our forecasts are not that accurate a lot of times. But being able to say, look, this is what it's doing right now, and playing your day off of that, rather than making a game plan the day before.
And along those same lines, trying to gauge around the weather, a lot of times, say for instance in the bay, leaving out, I had a list of areas that I wanted to fish, looking at the conditions. A lot of times with the wind, I'd say, this side of the bay, this end of the bay, it's pretty much off limits today.
Yeah,
it's just not going to be good conditions. So what I found myself doing was going to places I still had some confidence in, but wasn't have not fished as much and had to had to fish it for those conditions, and ended up going in there and really what we always say, grinding it out and getting in there fishing and really discovering some new opportunities, and that to turn the negative into a positive as far as the conditions, came away with saying, why have I overlooked this place all this time, and so that was a huge benefit.
Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of times we run right on past a lot of great water that holds a lot of fish, But when we're fishing under ideal conditions, the fish are there, you're going to go to that.
Absolutely.
But that was a very positive thing this year was, we caught good fish all year long under some not easy conditions.
Right.
And now looking on to years to come, we're going to have some good ammunition because we found a lot of good stuff. That's been right in front of us, and we just hadn't really tapped into it.
Under good conditions, you typically have that, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The best place is always off in the sunset.
Oh, yeah.
You got to make a 30-minute run, and a lot of stuff you pass by. So that was a good thing, and that's one of the. I guess we're gonna lead into that. We both got a couple. Both got a tip for you, and discuss a few things as we wrap up. Be sure to stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hey folks, we're back. First, we're going to start off this segment, do our fish and game times. 12:09 a.m. to 2:09 a.m. and 12:37 p.m. to 2:37 p.m. And as always, those are real important to go by, and just depending on what you're doing, how much of a factor they play. And then, of course, you want to factor in your tide and weather and conditions, but definitely part of the mix on trying to plan your outdoor activities.
I like that second time. It's Monday. Take off at lunch and go fishing.
That's right. Yeah, you got our permission. Just tell the boss we said it was okay.
That's right.
Now we've gone through some of the scenarios, things we've talked about over the summer. Now we want to try to make that transition and give you kind of our take on the current fall conditions, what we're seeing out on the water, what we expect, and then maybe even move into the little bit of wintertime pattern if we get an opportunity.
The polar opposite to this summer is what we're experiencing now, and I feel like it's well deserved.
Absolutely.
But this clear skies, light winds, and just beautiful weather is really starting to set in on us, and this is when it's great to live in the Panhandle.
It's an absolutely fantastic time of year to be on the water, in the woods, and while we're on that, one thing I want to try to mention, if you get an opportunity, take a young person. This is a perfect time to introduce a child hunting, fishing. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, just perfect time to be out, and if you get a chance to take a young person, please do that. My tip of the day, kind of tying into the fall situation of current fall conditions, we have a lot of bait moving. What bait's here is in the process of moving out of the bay, and you've got so much happening. It's almost like spring all over again, kind of reversed, and you'll see a lot of surface feeding activity as this continues. And one of the things I think that you could really do to help yourself with being out in a boat, and even anglers from shore on a pier, is to have a silver spoon rigged up.
A casting spoon.
Casting spoon, that's right. Like a crocodile, half-ounce crocodile spoon, a diamond spoon. Something heavy you can throw a long way, sink fast. You see birds feeding, and that a lot of times they give away surface feeding activity. Get over there quick as you can and fire that spoon through. I like to go make some passes through the top of the feeding activity, Spanish mackerel, bonita, ladyfish,
king mackerel, redfish,
anything.
Right, exactly.
You throw that spoon through the top and then catch those surface feeders, let it sink down, throw it past, let it sink down through the feeding activity. You might catch a big bull redfish.
Sure.
They're all getting in on the activity. And 40-pound test leader. Just have it rigged up and ready. Things happen fast. If you can get it pulled out and throw, a lot of times you catch fish that you wouldn't otherwise by the time you had time to rig it up.
If you wait till you see that school of blood minnows come up and fish start busting to think about trying to get something ready for it, you're going to be too late.
It just doesn't give you. They don't give you enough time.
Another good tip to add to that too. A lot of those casting spoons come with a treble hook on the back. Okay. I know that I do this, and it makes life very easy. Is I take that treble hook off and I just put one sturdy J hook on the back, and I even mash the barb down. because a lot of the stuff that you catch doing it, like the bonitas and stuff, is stuff we're going to let go anyways.
Right.
So having one single J hook on the back, first off, I think that bigger J hook, you actually lose fewer fish.
I would agree.
You know, the treble hook doesn't have a lot of bite to it, so use a little bigger J hook, and it also makes releasing them very easy.
Quicker you get that fish unhooked and released,
That's
quicker
right.
you get the spoon back and have a chance to
Hooking
catch another
another
fish. Talking about all the rain we had, I feel like it's cooled to help cool the water temperature down, and we're getting cooler than average water temperatures, and that's leading into fish really coming. We on the show before, we've talked about this time of year, fish moving up shallow and feeding and really staying up there and being active, and that's happening. Not able to see as much as we typically do.
Sure.
Being able to see a lot of the redfish, but you get in the area and fish, it doesn't take long. They'll show you they're there, and I think we're going to have a really good fall as far as activity and
the flounder migration is definitely starting to kick in now. You know, all those fish are going to start moving out of the pass.
That's right.
Any flats, you know, in the big part of the bay, in St. Andrews Bay, those fish, you know, they don't just make a beeline out the bay.
No.
They're going to work their way out the bay. So any flats, you know, in St. Andrews Bay are going to start increasing in flounder numbers. Matter of fact, I was catching bait a couple of days ago, and I can't remember, 3 or 4 flounders I kicked off while I was up there looking for some bait. You know, so they're definitely starting to make their move, and the flounder bites getting pretty good.
I talked to Steve Cahote last week, and he dives a lot, and they're already seeing a lot of them, getting a lot of them out there on the wrecks and reefs. So they're already moving and out. And if you get a chance, it's one of those kind of boom or bust situations. A lot of times this time of year, if you're behind them, more than likely you're not going to see or catch a lot of those fish. You get right in the middle of their migration, and it's literally just putting something down on the bottom.
Yeah. And I will say, you can get carried away with it a little bit too when you get on them good.
Right.
And I would encourage people to keep what you're going to eat, you know, that night or the next night. You know, we are allowed to keep a bunch of flounders if you got a few people on the boat. So, but there's no reason to go out there and keep 30 or 40 flounders.
Absolutely.
It's going to go to waste. But hey, I'll be the first one to say, if I can put a few of those on the dinner plate, that's always a crowd pleaser.
There you go. Well, folks, we're out of time again. We'll leave you with a tip for conservation, and that's a show. Justin,
that's it.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you much.
All right. God bless you. Have a great day, and
see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.